It's March the 23rd, 2023, and this is video 325. For a long time, I've hoped that each video I make will be the last. I have other things I want to do. All I get out of these damn videos is abuse and bans and death threats. I've never monetized them, I've never allowed ads, and I've always allowed anyone and everyone to make copies. In my 3 years of making videos, I haven't told you anything that wasn't true. I've made no predictions that didn't come true. And crooked fact checkers have constantly tried and failed to find errors, though lots of them have lied trying. I warned about compulsory vaccinations in a cashless society in February and March 2020. I warned about the fake pandemic, food shortages, DNA theft and so on. I warned before they started giving it exactly how the COVID jab would kill people. I warned about inflation and interest rate rises in 2020 and repeated the warning in August 2022. All the scripts of all the videos are available free on vernoncoleman.com. On May the 3rd, 2022, I made a video entitled Why They Need World War III. And in a video dated to February the 9th, 2022, I pointed out that World War III had started and explained how the Americans had destroyed the Nord Stream pipeline. Biden boasted that he'd do that, and, as planned, blowing up the pipeline forced a freezing Europe into the war with greater enthusiasm. It also meant that Europe had to buy American gas. The lunatic conspirators claimed that the pipeline was destroyed by unknown saboteurs, probably two teenage boys in a rowing boat whose fishing tackle got caught in the pipeline and damaged it. Recently, I've published many revelations about the war on vernoncoleman.com and vernoncoleman.org. It's now become clear that Western leaders who are running this war through NATO are desperate for it to go nuclear. And I wouldn't bet against these evil, insane people getting what they want. Why? Well, don't forget that the plan for the Great Reset includes a depopulation plan. The conspirators, the insane globalists behind the climate fraud, the fake pandemic, the rebranded flu, the COVID jab, now better known as the world's most toxic pharmaceutical product, boasted that they wanted to reduce the world population from around 8 billion down to 500 million. Not even the toxic experimental COVID jab is killing people fast enough for them. Though that's been useful to them. In murdering thousands of the elderly, they've saved billions on pension fees. They boasted about that. Hence the war. The war in Ukraine didn't start in 2022, and it wasn't started by Russia, of course. It was started in 2014 when Ukraine started to attack a breakaway pro-Russian province. In 2015, Obama admitted that the American government had put Zelensky in place and given him billions of dollars to play with. It was NATO which decided that an escalation was needed and decided to use the Ukraine conflict as a designer war, a proxy war. Watch my video entitled Urgent Warning to Everyone. Now the UK has upped the ante by sending depleted uranium shells to Ukraine. Sunak, previously masquerading effectively as a grinning moron, he was, by the way, quoted as saying as now wasn't the time for peace, must surely now stand alongside the loathsome Tony Blair as a major war criminal. The mainstream media has ignored this story, or buried it on page 23. I know a little about depleted uranium. In my book Rogue Nation, which I wrote in 2003 in protest at America's illegal invasion of Iraq, and boy did that get me into trouble, I wrote, quote, during America's war against Yugoslavia, the USA dropped over 10,000 tons of depleted uranium on, among others, passenger trains, television studios, occupied office buildings, assorted embassies and refugee convoys. This typically inaccurate American bombing campaign was carried out without the authorization of the United Nations Security Council or indeed the USA Congress. It was, in short, an illegal war which would have been described as terrorism if America hadn't been responsible, close quotes. And I pointed out, quote, radiation levels in Iraq are dangerously high as a result of depleted uranium used by America in the Gulf War. Iraqi babies are born without brains, eyes or genitalia. Blood pours from their ears and mouths. Close quotes. That was 2003. So it's not surprising that Mr. Putin is more than a little pissed off that Britain started to use dirty bombs in Ukraine. These shells will raise radiation levels in Ukraine by 1,000 times or more. When used in Iraq, they caused cancer, miscarriages, and, with vaccinations, contributed to Gulf War syndrome. We know the long-term effects of depleted uranium. When American forces used it in Iraq and Yugoslavia, where NATO, by the way, dropped 31,000 depleted uranium shells, tens of thousands of people suffered from the effects. Soldiers and civilians will die from it. There'll be a 38% increase in leukemia too, worse than the after effects of Hiroshima. There was indeed, a while ago, a feeble call for a moratorium on the use of the damned stuff. But the stuff even destroys the land and any crops that might be grown on it, which will result in a food shortage that will last for decades and starvation for generations to come. Depleted uranium shells will affect the land for 100 years. Once the breadbasket of the world, Ukraine will become a desert. There'll be no future whatever for the country. Biden and Sunak claim to be helping, but they're using it as a weapon against Russia. The idiots waving Ukraine flags are part of the evil conspiracy. Sunak has now moved us up a step and we're on the edge of a full-scale nuclear war. That's what Putin has implied. Russia has repeatedly made it clear that they regard depleted uranium shells as dirty nuclear bombs. The fact is that Biden, Sunak and the EU don't want peace. They want war, more war. We've already been told that NATO's planning to move troops into Ukraine, and there's talk of attacking Russia direct during their May celebrations, and NATO apparently want to attack the Crimea Bridge. And if, or rather when, this war goes totally nuclear, billions will die. That's what the bastards want. Who else is going to join in? Israel, North Korea, China? In my opinion, Sunak, the figurehead British Prime Minister standing in for Schwab, who was too busy to take the job, has now joined Biden as a major war criminal. They're both despicable individuals. Naturally, the mainstream media's ignored this story. Maybe they'd take it seriously if a few celebrities found the courage to stand up and speak about it, but they won't, of course. Biden and Sunak are practicing communists, and the celebrities who get airtime are all left-wing maniacs. The mainstream media around the world's being fed misinformation and disinformation by the CIA's own experts. They're feeding us garbage about protests in Georgia, for example. Biden and Sunak and company are deliberately leading us into a nuclear war, and the first thing most people will know about it will be when they wake up dead. Meanwhile, here's a tip. Keep an eye on where Biden, Sunak, Trudeau, Charles, his royal hypocrite who isn't my king, Macron and the rest are hanging out. When they all decide it's time to take a trip to some remote part of the country, you'll know that the end is nigh. Thank you for watching An Old Man in a Chair. May God be with you. Paraphrasing the words of Rick of the excellent True News, I promise to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Distrust the government, avoid mass media, and fight the lies. And please share this with everyone you know. YouTube banned me a long time ago, and I'm totally banned from all social media for the curious modern crime of telling the truth. But you can find me on www.vernoncoleman.com, where I've been sharing truths since long before the evil Google and YouTube were born. Thank you again for watching An Old Man in a Chair.